Right now, bombs are falling on Iran, and oil tankers are stuck outside the Arabian Gulf, unable to move anywhere. Over 3,500 people have already died, and the war is costing America $1.8 billion every single day. Ordinary people everywhere are paying more for fuel, groceries, and absolutely everything else because of this conflict. But while millions suffer, there is a small group of people quietly becoming extraordinarily rich from every single moment of this war. To understand who is getting rich, you first need to understand what this war actually did to global oil markets. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's entire oil supply normally flows, has been effectively closed. Over 1,600 vessels and 20,000 seafarers are currently stranded in the Gulf, unable to move forward. When 20% of global oil suddenly cannot reach its destination, the entire world's energy system goes into crisis immediately. Brent crude oil prices jumped 15% to $83 per barrel by early March 2026 alone. But that was just the beginning, because prices kept climbing as the conflict continued escalating beyond what anyone initially expected. Today, Brent crude is sitting at over $107 per barrel as the blockade continues with no end in sight. Every single dollar that oil price rises transfers enormous amounts of wealth from ordinary consumers directly into the pockets of oil producers globally. The first and biggest winners from this war are oil producers whose exports do not pass through the Strait of Hormuz at all. When Middle Eastern shipments face disruption, refiners look for crude that can reach market without passing through the Strait of Hormuz, increasing value of oil from North America, North Sea, and Russia. Countries like America, Canada, Norway, and Russia suddenly found their oil was worth dramatically more money almost overnight. Russian Urals crude, which traded at a $13 discount to Brent before the war flipped to trading at a $4 to $5 premium. An unusual swing reflecting sudden scarcity. The second massive group of winners are the giant defense companies supplying weapons to every side involved in this conflict. Lockheed Martin, the largest Pentagon contractor, saw its stock price rise by nearly 40% since the start of 2026. Think about what that means for people who owned Lockheed Martin shares before this war even started officially. The second Trump administration declared that the arms industry quadrupled weapons production to solve projected exhaustion of defensive systems due to military operations in the Iran war. BAE Systems, a major British supplier of fighter jet components, naval systems, and military technology, said it expects strong sales and profit growth this year, citing rising global security threats. Every missile fired, every drone shot down, and every weapon system deployed needs to be replaced, creating permanent, ongoing demand. Defense companies do not just profit once. They profit repeatedly every single time a weapon is used and needs replacing in this conflict. Higher defense spending translates into long-term procurement contracts, creating steady revenue streams for contractors supplying military hardware. The third group getting extraordinarily rich are the major oil trading companies and European energy giants with large trading operations. European oil majors have benefited most because of their large trading arms, which profit from volatility in energy markets. These companies make money not just when oil prices go up, but from the wild swings and unpredictability that war creates in markets. BP's first quarter profit more than doubled year on year to $3.2 billion, the highest for the British oil giant since 2023. The fourth winners are the major banks whose trading desks thrive during periods of extreme market volatility and uncertainty. JP Morgan's trading arm reported a record $11.6 billion in revenue in the first quarter, helping deliver the bank's second biggest quarterly profit ever. When markets are chaotic and volatile, banks that trade currencies, commodities, and financial instruments make enormous amounts of money consistently. Across the six largest U.S. banks, profits reached $47.7 billion in just the first 3 months of 2026 alone. But perhaps the most controversial winners of this entire war are certain individual investors with advanced knowledge of what was coming. Trades placed more than $500 million in oil futures, bets minutes before Trump announced very good and productive conversations with Iran, suggesting insider knowledge of events. This means someone knew what Trump was about to say before he said it publicly and positioned their money to profit from that knowledge. This was described as war and conflict manipulated nakedly for short-term profiteering in a way that is quite unique to the assault on Iran. There is also a fifth group of winners that most people completely overlook when thinking about who profits from this conflict globally. Individual fortunes rise during geopolitical turmoil when billionaires hold assets tied to sectors that benefit from disruption directly. Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet network has become an important communications platform in conflict zones, making his companies strategically important during this conflict. When governments and militaries need reliable communications in war zones, they pay premium prices that ordinary consumers never see or pay normally. Now, here is the part that should make every ordinary person genuinely angry about what is happening right now globally. Major oil and gas companies made over $30 million per hour in profits during just the first month of the Iran war alone. Meanwhile, ordinary families in Europe, Asia, and America are paying dramatically more for fuel heating and every single product that requires transportation. The World Travel and Tourism Council reported that the Iran conflict cost the travel and tourism sector approximately $600 million per day. The people who are suffering most from this war are not the wealthy investors or defense contractors making record profits every quarter. They are the ordinary workers whose wages buy less every single week as inflation rises from higher energy costs globally. Iranian workers at Mobarake Steel Company, previously earning 100 million tomans monthly, are now receiving wages close to the legal minimum, one-fifth of their previous pay. The cost of this war falls hardest on the people who had absolutely nothing to do with starting it in the first place. Understanding this pattern of who profits from wars is one of the most important financial lessons any person can ever learn. Every major conflict in modern history has created the same winners: energy companies, defense contractors, banks, and informed investors consistently. The stock prices of defense companies rise within hours of any major military escalation because markets know exactly who profits from conflict. This is not a conspiracy theory, it is simply following the money and understanding where it flows during times of crisis always. So what can an ordinary person actually do with this information in a practical and legal way right now? The answer is that understanding these patterns allows you to make smarter investment decisions before the next global crisis hits unexpectedly. Defense sector, index funds, energy commodities, and precious metals have historically performed very well during periods of geopolitical conflict globally. You do not need insider knowledge. You just need to understand the basic financial patterns that repeat themselves in every single major conflict. Gold is perhaps the clearest example of an asset that ordinary people can access that benefits from war and uncertainty. The 2026 Iran war has echoed the 1970s energy crisis through acute supply shortages, currency volatility, inflation, and heightened risks of stagflation and recession. During the 1970s energy crisis, gold prices rose by over 500%, making early investors extraordinarily wealthy over that period. History does not repeat exactly, but it rhymes consistently, and the same financial patterns keep appearing in every major global crisis, always. The most uncomfortable truth about wars and global conflicts is that they are never purely about politics or ideology alone. There are always massive financial interests involved that benefit enormously from the continuation of conflict rather than its peaceful resolution. The arms trade accounts for an estimated 40% of global trade corruption, despite representing only 0.5% of global trade volume. When this much money is involved in any industry, the incentives to keep conflicts going rather than ending them become extraordinarily powerful always. This does not mean you should feel helpless or that ordinary people cannot protect themselves from these powerful financial forces at all. The single most powerful thing any person can do is simply understand how money flows during crises before the next one arrives unexpectedly. People who understood in February 2026 that an Iran conflict would spike oil prices could have positioned themselves in energy assets very early. That positioning requires no special connections, no insider knowledge, and no massive amount of starting capital to implement effectively. The wealthy understand something about wars and crises that most ordinary people are never taught in schools or universities anywhere. Every crisis creates scarcity somewhere, and scarcity always creates enormous profit opportunities for those positioned correctly beforehand, consistently. The question is never whether the next crisis will come. History guarantees that it absolutely will come at some point. The only real question is whether you will be positioned to protect your wealth when it arrives or scrambling to recover afterward. Knowing which industries benefit from geopolitical conflicts gives you a permanent financial education that applies to every future crisis. Defense, energy, precious metals, and certain financial instruments tend to rise when global uncertainty increases dramatically for any reason. You do not need to support war or profit from human suffering to simply understand these patterns and protect your own financial future. Understanding how money moves during crises is one of the most valuable forms of financial intelligence any ordinary person can develop today. If this video helped you understand how money really moves during global conflicts, please subscribe to Empire and Money right now. We break down these real-world financial events every single week in simple terms that anyone can understand and immediately apply. The people who understand how wealth moves during crises are always the ones who protect and grow their money over time. See you in the next one.